Prabhupada ki jai. Okay, so we're continuing with our discussion of Lord Ramachandra's pastimes. So we're going to read from Srimad Bhagavatam, the 9th canto, 10th chapter, text 5. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So I'll just read the Sanskrit and the translation, do the word by words together. So, Vishwamitra Dvarayena Marichaja Nishacharaha Pashyato Lakshmanasyaiva Hatanairita Pungavaha. So you can repeat. Vishwamitra Advare. In the sacrificial arena of the great sage Vishwamitra. Yena. By whom? Lord Ramchandra. Maricha Adjaha. Headed by Maricha. Anishacharaha, the uncivilized persons wandering at night in the darkness of ignorance. Pashyata Lakshmanasya, being seen by Lakshmana. Eva, indeed. Hataha, were killed. Nairita Pungavaha, the great chiefs of the Rakshasas. So, translation. In the arena of the sacrifice performed by Vishwamitra, Lord Ramachandra, the king of Ayodhya, killed many demons, Rakshasas, and uncivilized men who wandered at night in the mode of darkness. May Lord Ramachandra, who killed these demons in the presence of Lakshmana, be kind enough to give us protection. Okay, so I mentioned that today we were going to talk about Vishwamitra and his whole history, right? Let's see. I get to look at my notes. All right. And so we're going to talk about it's a very complicated history of Vishwamitra. So Om Gana Timiranda Shah Gananjana Shilakaya Chakshur Umilitam Yena Tasmai Shigurave Namaha. So Vishwamitra Muni was previously known as Kaushika, because that was the dynasty that he was appearing in. Because there was a great king named Pushanabha who had a son named Gadi, and Gadi is the father of Vishwamitra. And the sister of Vishwamitra is Satyavati, not the Satyavati in the Mahabharata, but the Satyavati who married Richika, and Richika's son was Jamadagni, and Jamadagni's son was Parshuram. So you understand? So he's related. Vishwamitra is actually related to Parshuram. That's why I'm telling you that. So, once upon a time, King Kaushika, who later on became Vishwamitra, was with his soldiers in the forest. And this story is actually for the Valmiki Ramayana. And it was told by the Prime Minister of Janaka Maharaj. And the reason that he told this, because he was also related to Vishwamitra. Anyway, it's a whole story. And the Prime Minister of Janaka Maharaj, as we mentioned yesterday, was also Ahalya's son. You got that? Gautama Rishi and Ahalya. Remember, Lord Ramchandra freed Ahalya because Gautama Rishi got real upset with her and cursed her. All right. So, what happened is that Kaushika, who later on became Vishwamitra, was in the woods with his soldiers, and he went to the ashram of Vashishta Muni. And when he was in the ashram with Vashishta Muni said, please come into my ashram and I will feed you and all your soldiers. And Kaushika said, how can you do that? You're just like a poor sage. And he said, don't worry. I have this nice desire cow named Nandini. She can give you anything you want. So all the soldiers, they sat in rows, and whatever they wanted, all the soldiers of Kaushika, they got. Some of them wanted pizza, I don't know. Some of them wanted daruka. Some of them wanted kava, whatever they wanted, they got. And then after the meal, they had some dessert, obviously. And then out of Nandini, the desire cow, came all these dancing girls that entertained them. Pretty good. So then when Kaushika, who later on became Vishwamitra, saw this, he thought, Nandini should belong to me. She shouldn't belong to this poor sage in the woods. And so he told Vashishta Muni that please give me Nandini and I'll give you thousands of regular cows. And Vashishta refused. And so eventually one thing led to the other, and he decided to steal Nandini. So he took Nandini, and Vishwamitra was just very forceful in this way. And Vashishta, he didn't do anything. But somehow or other Nandini escaped and went back to Vashishta and said to Vashishta Muni, don't you want me to stay? And he said, I'm not going to be interested in fighting, but if you like, stay. So once he gave her the order, all these soldiers came out of Nandini's rear end. They're called Pahlavi soldiers, something like that. Actually, they were Iranians. Anyway, later on became Iranians. There's a whole story about that. And then so they came out, and basically they wiped out Vishwamitra's army, not him personally, and killed his 100 sons. So, of course, Vishwamitra was really upset at this. And he thought, I want to destroy this Vashishta Muni. So he went to Lord Shiva and performed austerities for so many years. And he got all the celestial weapons from Lord Shiva, including the Trishula. So then he went back to the ashram of Vashishta Muni and fired his weapons at the ashram of Vashishta Muni. And all the poor brahmacharis and ladies, they just ran away. But Vashishta Muni, he just sat there very calmly, and with his staff, he absorbed all these celestial weapons. Wow. And so, Vishwamitra was really upset, after going to all that trouble. He even destroyed or absorbed the Brahmastra weapon. Brahmastra weapon is a weapon like the atomic bomb, but it can be localized or focused on one person. Just like in that story in the Mahabharata about Ashwatam, he focused the Brahmastra on the son of Uttara, who later on became known as Parikshit. And of course, Krishna saved Parikshit Maharaj. So here was poor Visvamitra. He'd gone to all this trouble to get all of his austerities and powers, and then he wasn't able to defeat this little sage in the woods. So then he thought, I want to become a Brahmin too, because by becoming a Brahmin, I can become so powerful that I can defeat. He wanted to become a Brahmin for the wrong reasons. Because a real Brahmin is one who knows Brahman. That's not a ritualistic Brahmin, is not a Brahmin. But a Brahmin, it's the description of Brahmin is one who knows Brahman, either Brahmiti, Paramatmeti, Bhagavaniti, Shakti, either the impersonal Brahman, the localized Paramatma, or the aspect of the Lord that's supreme, the personality of God in Bhagavan. So, anyway, so then he thought, let me do more austerities. So for like 1,000 more years, he did austerities. And then he got the title of Rajarshi, not Brahmin yet. Rajarshi means Raja Rishi. That means you're sage amongst the kings. That's not really powerful enough for him. So then he did more austerities, and he was getting more powerful, but then something happened that was very interesting. There was this one king named Trishanku. And Trishanku, he had this desire to go to heaven in his regular body, regular gross material body, bile, mucus, air, yuck. You can't go to heaven in those bodies. I mean, just like this morning we were taking a walk and there was a dead body on the road. And I was just like, practically regurgitating. Almost had to go to the hospital. I was so sick from seeing it. And then I was thinking, that's me too. I have one of those. Isn't it? We all have a body like that. And then if we get so sick of that body there, why do we get sick with, why do we not get sick looking at our bodies? But then we watch so many, not me, but we watch so many Bollywood films and see attractive young boys and girls. And it's the same body as that dog lying on the street that smelled bad. Okay, enough sannyas stuff for today. So, anyway, so this Sri Shankar, he wanted to go to heaven. And he had this really material body. So he goes to Vashishta Muni. And Vashishta Muni refuses. He said, this is ridiculous. You want to go to heaven, you got to execute austerities, change your body. Like Prabhupada said, they can't go to other planets because if they want to go to other planets, they have to take on a body, like the residents in the other planets. So Trishanku didn't want to give up his idea. So he went to the sons of Vashishta Muni, and he said, look, your father wouldn't do it, but you can do it. You're better than your father. And so the sons got so upset, they cursed Trishanku, not only that he couldn't go to the heavenly planets, but they cursed his body to turn into a Shudra's body. So all of a sudden, everything turned on his body. All of his features became like monkeys, basically. Monkey feature. And his earrings even turned to iron. His gold earrings turned to iron. Everything. He just looked like hell after they cursed him. So he became a Chandala. So then he thought, I still want to go to heaven in this body, even if it's a Chandala body. So then he goes to Visvamitra Muni, the competitor of Vashishta, and he says, look, this Vashishta couldn't do it, but I have faith in you, Guru Maharaj. You can do it. So Visvamitra Muni thought, I'll do it for him. And so he invited all the brahmanas, even invited the 100 sons of Vashishta to join him in this sacrifice. And they refused to come, and he cursed the sons of Vashishta to die and become 700 births of low-class Chandalas because they wouldn't listen to him. Get all this cursing and counter-cursing. So then he performed this sacrifice to get Trishanku back, or not back, but to the heavenly planets. This is Vishwamitra Muni. And nothing happened. The demigods didn't come and take him to the heavenly planets in that Chandala body. Obviously, they didn't want any ugly people on the heavenly planets. So he thought, I'll do it with my own power. So Vishwamitra Muni said, you go to heaven, in his own power, or with his own power. And then Trishanku started to ascend to the heavenly planets. Up in the air. And the demigods said, oh my God, he is ugly. And they said, go back down. And so he started to go, back down again. And then Vishwamitra Muni said, go back up. And then went, and then the demigods, go back down. And then back and forth. So they had a mediation, and they decided that they would create, Vishwamitra Muni would create a artificial heavenly planet, second heavenly planets. And so Trishanku was upside down at this particular point. So now he's in the heavenly planets, upside down, I guess. This is a story. That story is also in the Bhagavatam. And then by doing that, he lost all of his tejas. Because the problem is when you're a materialistic yogi, not Krishna conscious, if you use your power, you lose your power. Just like there was a bogus yogi in the 1960s who said to it, this is in India, he said to his disciple, I've given you all my Shakti, and now I have nothing left. And he fainted. That's true. I mean, with materially, it works like that. But spiritually, the more you give people Krishna Shakti, the more you have yourself. So it's better to be a devotee, because you don't just use up your power. It's like a battery. You need a battery, like a mobile phone. You use up the power and then it's empty. And then you got to recharge it. So Vishwamitra Muni, he wanted to recharge his spiritual or power battery. And so then he went to Pushkara. And when he was in Pushkara, something else happened. He has all these impediments in his sacrifices. When he was in Pushkara, that's the place where they worship Lord Brahma. Once upon a time, there was this person who was going to be offered as a human sacrifice. His name was Sunakshepa. And then what happened is Sunakshepa went to Vishwamitra Muni and said, please save me. I don't want to be offered as a human sacrifice. So Vishwamitra Muni said to his sons, Vishwamitra Muni also had 100 sons at this particular time, one of you should take his place. And they all refused. So he curses his own, he has a problem with anger. This is why later on in the Ramayan, everyone's afraid of Vishwamitra Muni. Don't make him angry. He has an issue with anger. He needs anger management. So he curses his own sons because they won't take the place of this guy to become dog eaters. And so they all become dog eaters. All of his sons, he loves his sons so much. And then he's able to save this guy, Sunakshepa, who's going to be offered as a human sacrifice, by teaching him a mantra to Lord Vishnu. So during the sacrifice, he chants the mantra and Vishnu saves him. So then he goes back to Pushkara and he does 100 years of sacrifice at this point, of austerities. And then he's given the title of Rishi. Still, he's not a Brahma Rishi. He's given the title Rishi by Lord Brahma. So he decides, I got to do more austerities. So he's doing more austerities. And then all of a sudden, as he's doing in austerities, the demigods decide to stop his austerities, and they send this girl, Menaka, down there. And Menaka, heavenly society girl, she comes and actually it's described that she rings her ankle bells. Like, ding, ding. That's why ladies have ankle bells, so you know they're coming. It's like cowbells. Anyway, so it's true. I mean, in India, it's quite common for ladies to have ankle bells. Here, I haven't seen any ladies with ankle bells. You should all get them. And so anyway, she rings her ankle bells. He hears ching, 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 ching. And he opens his eyes and he sees Menaka. And she is really attractive. And he forgets about all his austerities. This is Krishna's illusory energy. And for 10 years he lives together with her. And while he's living together with her, he realizes at the end of the 10 years, I'm in Maya. And he looks at her a little angry. He's not going to hurt her. And she realized it's time to go. Husband's angry. So she leaves, and he leaves. But the problem is they leave a kid there in the forest. There's a little baby girl that was born from Menaka. And her name is Shakuntala. Anyone heard of this story before? No. It's a new story for all of you. That's good. I like to tell stories you haven't heard from the Ramayan. So Shakuntala, this little girl is born, and she's in the forest, and she's taken care of first by the vultures. That's a name for vulture in Sanskrit, Shakuntala. Anyway, she's taken care of by the vultures. Then she's later adopted by this Muni, Kanva Muni. And Kanva Muni keeps her in the ashram. He's a nice Muni. He protects her and everything like that. Then, later on, this king, Dushmanta, is wandering in the forest and he sees her. And he falls in love with her. And this story is important because it involves India. So anyway, so he falls in love with her and gets married in the Gandharva rite. They exchange garlands, that's marriage. And he says to her that later on you can come to the kingdom and I'll accept you as my wife and you can be the queen. And he gives her a ring from him. And so she's happy. He goes back to the kingdom, and then after a little while she decides to join him. But on the way to join him, because there's some curse of a sage, she loses the ring. So he's cursed or something like that by a sage to forget that he married her. So she goes to the kingdom of Dushmanta with her son. She has a son at this particular point. And later on I'll tell you the son's name. And then she says to Dushmanta that I'm your bride, here's your son. He said, I don't know you. Get rid of this lady. Give her some money, just get her out of here. And then later on, he comes out of that illusion, she finds the ring. The ring was eaten by a fish as she was crossing the river. There's a whole story, it's a famous story. The story of Shakuntala. Actually, there's movies about it. There's Indian movies about it. You can look it up on the internet. And so they get married, or they're already married, and they live happily ever after. And that son of theirs' name is Bart, of who India is named after. That's Bart Varsha. You understand? So that's a very important story. Of course, there's another Bart, too, who was the son of Rishabdev, who later became a deer in the next life, and Jadabart after that. So sometimes people say that India was named after him, but usually people say that India was named after the son of this lady Shakuntala. Anyway, and Dushmanta. Anyway, so, nice story. So anyway, get back to Vishwamitra Muni. This is all Ramayan. I'm not making this up, even though I haven't mentioned Lord Rama's name yet. So anyway, so after this whole austerity, getting back, Vishwamitra is just really upset. Menaka's ruined his austerity. So then he goes to the Himalayas and does thousands of years more austerity, and he gets the title of Maharishi. Still, he's not Brahma Rishi. He's Maharishi. Maha means a great Rishi. Then he does 1,000 more years of austerity. You know, he's sitting on top of the Himalayas, and Indra thinks, we got to stop this guy. Because usually, when the demigods, they see someone executing austerities, they think that the person is executing austerities become Indra. So Indra does all sorts of funny things to stop people. I mean, that was the reason that Rishi Shringa was born. Remember I told the story about Rishi Shringa? That Lady Harsha came to try to attract the father, and then that Harsha, that lady, she was sent by Indra. So anyway, in the same way, so Vishwamitra is on the Himalayas meditating, and Indra decides, we got to stop this. So Indra becomes a bird. You hear the birds outside? Very romantic. So Indra becomes a bird, and he sends down Ramba. Ramba's another like dancing girl from the heavenly planets. Indra has all these nice dancing girls. Urvasi is the best. Did you know that? Because Urvasi came from Vishnu. Did you know that? I could tell that story too. Urvasi, stories within stories. Urvasi came about when Indra tried to stop Narayan Rishis from performing austerities. Indra came down with other girls, and Narayan Rishis, which is Krishna and Arjuna incarnate, they just yawned when they saw the girls, and Krishna produced another girl, and that girl was Urvasi. And Krishna said to Indra, you can take her back with you if you want. Here's a present. So anyway, so Indra goes as a bird, and he sends this Ramba, and Ramba starts dancing again with the ankle bells, you know, chiki 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 chiki. That's why all the ladies should learn Bharatanatyam, so they can find nice husbands. They just go and pick out a man and just go where he's living. Ching, 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 ching. So Indra's chirping as a bird. That's why he became a bird. You know, because the birds can sound very sweet sometimes. Chirp, chirp. And you know, the springtime, and it's really, you know, there's actually this poem, when it's springtime, people's fancy turns to love. So, and then he looks at her. Oh yeah, Cupid comes too. Because Cupid is Ananga. Cupid doesn't have a body. So he comes too, and so you got Cupid, the girl, Indra. And this time, Vishwamitra has learned his lesson. I'm not going to give in this time. So he basically, burns her. Shoo! And curses her to become stone for 10,000 years. So this poor lady, I mean, she's just doing her service. And she becomes stone for 10,000 years. Later on, she was saved by Vasishtha Muni. So then, you know, can you imagine how many austerities he had to get? So he's changing, what I'm talking about is he's changing his varna. So don't try to change your varna. It doesn't work very well. Whatever you are, you are. You know, you're Brahmin, Kshatriya, Vaishya, Shudra, just serve Krishna. Krishna in the Gita says, everybody can become perfect doing his duty. Nobody should try to do someone else's duty, even if he can do it perfectly. Everybody has a specific duty. That's Varnashram. So, but he didn't like his Varnashram status. He wanted to be a Brahma Rishi. So, then he goes to the south after burning up or cursing Ramba. And then he does Mona Vrata and doesn't eat for 1,000 years. He's really determined. And he gets ready to break his fast after 1,000 years. So Indra comes again as a Brahmin and says, give all the food to me. That's quite frustrating, you know, on a fast day. Let's say it's Gaur Purnima or Ram Navami, and you're getting ready to break the fast, and someone comes, give the food to me. No, the Guru says, give the food to me. Just like several years ago, I was noticing the devotees in the Sunday feast were eating before the guests. And I said, you have to serve the guests first. And if there's anything left over, you can eat it. And they said, that's torture. And I said, that's okay. So, because we have to serve. We're here to serve. We're not here to eat. If you're a new devotee, yeah, come and eat. But if you're an old devotee, serve. Yeah, someone comes to the temple, oh, it's great, you're here. Haribol, here's my food. It doesn't matter if I eat. Yeah, you get a chance to eat later. I've never seen a Hare Krishna devotee starve to death. Never in my life. I've seen the opposite. I've seen them eat to death. Right? Even I have this seminar, it's called Stop Killing the Devotees. And it's about devotees eating themselves to death. So anyway, so Indra comes, and Vishwamitra gives all the food to him. So he passes the test. Really nice. Then he does 1,000 more years. Smoke comes from his head. Fire comes from his head. And then finally Lord Brahma comes and gives him the title. You are now a Brahma Rishi. So because he's controlled his anger and senses at this particular point, he becomes friends with Vasishta. So the whole enemies thing is over, and he's friends, and they shake hands, and they're very happy. So that's the story of Vishwamitra Muni. Okay. So we told the story of the Sita Swayamvara already. Okay. Okay. And I think you all know. Okay. Let's go back to that story. Wow. We told the appearance of Ravana already. We told the story of Ahalya. And you know the story of Manthara. I'm trying to tell stories that you all don't know. Okay. So as far as Kaikeyi was concerned, there's a story you may not know about Kaikeyi. Kaikeyi, of course, is the youngest wife of Dasarath. And Dasarath also promised Kaikeyi's father, when he got married to Kaikeyi, that Kaikeyi's son would become the king. So, you know, he forgot about that. Okay. So then there's the whole story of Ram being sent into exile by Manthara, Kaikeyi, and Dasarath. We told that already. So as Ram left the kingdom to go to the forest, everyone was following him. All the citizens wanted to follow him. Kaikeyi was very upset, but there was nothing she could do. But Ram wanted all the citizens to go back. So the first night he spent on the bank of the Sarayu River, before he crossed the Sarayu River, he woke up very early in the morning before anyone else woke up. And he tricked the citizens and disappeared and crossed the river. And when he crossed the river, he met one of his school friends, who you all know, Guha, right? I think I'm very certain. He was the king of the Nishadas. Nishadas were like low-class people. But he had gone to the Gurukul along with Lord Ram because he was the king. And he helped Lord Ram cross the Ganges. And Lord Ram sent Subhantra That means the prime minister, King Dasarath, back. And then the first thing, he went to Bhattaraja's ashram. Bhattaraja was one of the sages there. Then he went to Chitrakoot, and he actually met Valmiki Muni at that point, even before this whole thing of Sita being kidnapped. And so in the meantime, Dasarath dies. And the reason he dies, and you all know that story, is that the Shravan Kumara story, where Dasarath was firing his arrow using sound vibration. And he fired at what he thought was a deer drinking water, but it happened to be Shravan Kumar, and therefore he was cursed by Shravan Kumar's parents, and he would die he would die feeling separation from his son. This is actually very similar to the story in the Mahabharata, where you have Pandu has a hunting accident, right? And he killed the sage, the Rishi Kindama, and the Rishi's wife. You know the story? No. So, okay, Pandu, the father of the Pandavas, was out hunting one day, and he also saw a deer. It's not by sound, but he saw a deer, two deer, a male deer and a female deer. And he shot an arrow at the deer. But it turned out that these two deer were sages. There was the Rishi Kindama and his wife. Anyone heard this story before? And they had become deer because basically they wanted to have children, and they really didn't have any lust in their own hearts. So they had to become deer. And so they cursed him, that is Pandu, as soon as you go near your wife or one of your wives, you're finished too. And that's the whole story of the Mahabharata, which I'm not going to talk about right now. So Dasarath dies. Bharat comes home. He renounces his mother. He tells his mother, "You're not my mother anymore. Get out of here." And he goes to search for Ram and to bring Ram back. Now it's described in the Valmiki Ramayan that when he goes to search for Ram, he actually widens all the roads, just like you have construction here going to Missouri. But he does it very quickly. So he widens them tremendously, makes a major road to Chitrakoot. Big, big road. So he goes with the Kovida, the flag of the Ikshvaku dynasty, and the whole army. He takes the whole army with him to get Ram back. Now, that could have been a problem, because when Lakshman, who is standing guard or going up a tree to see who's coming, he looks and he sees the whole army coming. He thinks, and he understands it's Bharat in his army because he sees the Kovida, the flag. And he thinks that Bharat has come to kill Ram. And so Lakshman, being very loyal to Ram, says, he takes out his bow and says, "I'm going to kill that Bharat right away." And Ram, knowing Bharat's nature, says, "Look, he loves me just as much as you. Just cool it. Calm down, Lakshman." Because Lakshman sometimes he can get really angry. Like when he went into Kishkinda. After the 4 months of the rainy season were over and Sugriva was just enjoying, we told the story the other day, Sugriva was just enjoying with his two wives now, also Bali's wife. He was ready to kill everybody in sight. It described the monkeys, they just ran away when they saw Lakshman. So Lakshman got really angry. And so Ram calmed him down and said, "Lakshman, don't worry." Bharat comes there, and Bharat actually says, "You're coming back." And Ram says, "No." And they have this whole interesting discussion, and it really turns out that Ram is just insistent upon staying. And Bharat says, "All right, but I'm not going to be the king. Your shoes," and he puts down two wooden shoes and has Ram step on them. Because actually Ram is not wearing shoes when he's in the forest. He's completely barefoot. Not only is he barefoot when he's in the forest, it's described in the Valmiki Ramayan, All of his hair, he takes tree sap. You know what tree sap is? No. In the pine trees, you have pine trees here. So there's this stuff that comes out of the pine, and it's really sticky. Goo. It's like a goo. It's like sticky. And so he rubs it in his hair. Ram and Lakshman have, not Sita, she doesn't do it. Don't worry. That's why after the exile they have to shave their heads, because their hair is all it's all knotted and has all this goo in it. Why is that? Because in this way the sages don't get into decorating their bodies. You know, as soon as you have hair, the sages generally had long hair because there weren't too many barbers in the forest. You know, as soon as you have hair, it's just like, I'm even me with my sika, you know, I'm playing with it and tying it, you know, like that. You know, and this is a little tiny sika. So what to speak of, you know, you have a whole, and like Prabhupada said, a woman's main business is hair combing. Prabhupada, don't blame me. So, then you have to spend so much time combing, going to the hairdresser. So, anyway, so Ram has this knotted hair and all the tree sap in his hair. That's described there. So, and Ram is not wearing shoes the whole time he's in the forest. And so, it's also interesting, Krishna didn't wear shoes either when he was taking care of the cows. And the reason Krishna didn't wear shoes, even when they asked him to take care of shoes, was because he said the cows don't have shoes. So why should I wear shoes? So Ram puts his feet on these wooden shoes, and Bart takes the shoes back and he worships the shoes as the king. And he lives underground because Ram is on top of the ground, sleeping on top of the ground in a bed of leaves. And Bart doesn't want to become better than Ram. So this is the loyalty. I mean, this is a really important lesson for us, the loyalty and love. I mean, it's not just he does it out of fear, he does it out of love. You understand? This is love. It's not that he's thinking, I better do this or else the Yamaraj's dutas will come and get me. You know, many times we do things in Krishna consciousness out of fear, but we shouldn't, or force. It's like, you know, you're worshiping the deity. It shouldn't be, I have to do this, I have to wake up early in the morning, oh my God, Guru Maharaj will be angry with me. You know, that's one way of controlling people. If you don't do this, I'm cursing you. Simuk, unless you chant your rounds every day, I will personally call the Yamadutas to get you. So that's not really good motivation. Motivation should be done out of love. So he's doing that out of love. So then Ram decides, so anyway, Bart lives in a place called Nandigram, which is outside of the city of Ayodhya. So then Ram decides to get out of there. He wants to go somewhere where Bart will never find him. So then he goes to Dandakaranya. So Dandakaranya, that word means it's a place where you do austerities. Like usually danda means like a stick, you know, danda. So you understand? Like dandavat means be like a stick. So Dandakaranya, he goes to Dandakaranya, and the first thing, because he doesn't want anyone to find him, because he thinks Bart is too attached. This is his motivation. And so then in Dandakaranya, he meets Atri Muni and the wife Anasuya. And this wife Anasuya gives Sita all these different perfumes and jewelry and instructs her how to be a good wife. Actually, there's an interesting story in the Mahabharata about how to be a good wife, if any of you ladies are married. You have Satyabhama asking Draupadi how to be a good wife, because Satyabhama wants to control Krishna. So she says, Draupadi, do you have any special mystic tricks to keep your 5 husbands in line? And Draupadi says, this is very unchaste, Satyabhama. I said, I'll tell you how to be a good wife. You wake up before your husband wakes up in the morning, and you go to sleep after he goes to sleep. Satyabhama doesn't like to hear this, anyways. So these are interesting stories. So anyway, so he meets Adri Muni and Anasuya, and they get all this jewelry and everything. And the interesting thing in the Ramayan it describes that poor Lakshman has to carry all this stuff with him. So not only doesn't he eat, and he has to serve Ram the whole time they're in the forest, of course it's out of love, but he's carrying all of Sita's jewelry and everything, because, Sita's a delicate girl. She's not going to carry all this stuff in the forest. So Lakshman has this big pack on his back. Oh, and it's just clothes and jewelry for Sita. Anyway. So that's a good husband. Oh, of course, Lakshman's not the husband, but that's a good servant. Anyway, so I think we have to end. Interesting stories. Okay, so tomorrow we'll continue, and we'll start with the story of Virada, who was a demon, who tried to kidnap Sita Devi. This is before Sita Devi was kidnapped by Ravan, so we'll start with that story. Okay, I think we have to end. All glories to His Divine Grace, Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai, Sita Ram, Lakshman Ki Jai.